You are listening to a 19 Media Group production. Welcome to Never Meet Your Heroes.
All right, welcome back to Never Meet Your Heroes, here with 19 Media Group. Jabari Davis back here with you after admittedly about a 6-week hiatus. Straight up, we have a format change, as you can see, and also mainly because we had a ton of special content with the NBA season kicking off. But we're back, and I'm very happy to be joined by some awesome folks for today's return. Up first, we've got Greg Foster. He's the co-host of the Brigham Young Money Pod, as well as the Unsalvageables Pod. He's been kind enough to have me on each of those. For whatever reason, I don't know, but he's returning the favor here today. Thank you for joining us today, Greg.
Man, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Much appreciated, much appreciated. And then the next two guests that are also going to be a part of today's show, I'm actually very excited. Not that I'm not excited about you, Greg, trust me. But I'm very excited about these guys because they're just getting started. First is Brad Winchester. He's the co-host of the Gimmick Infringement Podcast right here on 19 Media Group, as well as his partner, Tyler McDowell-Blanken. Also, once again, co-host of Gimmick Infringement for 19 Media Group. Thanks for joining, guys.
Thanks for having us. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Jabari. Likewise.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. You know how we do this. Greg, let's go ahead and start it off with you. Actually, before we get to the fun part, well, the funner part where we're just like trashing people and talking shit. Let the folks know a little bit about your shows.
You want me to go first?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah. So my name is Greg Foster. I co-host two podcasts. First is Brigham Young Money with my boys Kyle at Calypso on Twitter and Jordan at SLC Hunk. And we are a Utah culture and politics podcast. All three of us are members of the Democratic Socialists of America, which is not exactly, I mean, there are like dozens of us in Utah. We're real big.
Yeah.
So we take on everything from sports to music to local politics to national politics, and try to not lose our minds in the process. And I co-host Unsalvageable with Sarah Todd, who is the beat reporter for the Utah Jazz for the Deseret News. You can find her at NBA Sarah, and we cover all things NBA with a Utah Jazz focus.
Absolutely. And I'm going to be straightforward with you guys. I'm going to need my listeners, even though my listeners never listen to me and they don't go ahead and hook up the 5-star reviews. A couple of them have, but not enough of them. I need you guys to do this for Greg. I need you to absolutely give him a 5-star review. And if you're feeling froggish, hook him up with a review. Hook him up with an actual comment with a review. Tell him how attractive he is. Tell him he looks good. Tell him he looks good today. Whatever you need to say to make him happy, do that.
You can always tell me I'm attractive.
There you go.
I'm here for that.
Let's swing around the room a little bit. Brad, Tyler, what can we expect out of Gimmick Infringement?
Well, we've wanted to do this for a while. Tyler and I would have conversations at lunch. We both taught together in the same school, and we would meet up and talk about pro wrestling. Tyler got me back interested and fell in love with the business after a 20-year hiatus. So we spent time watching professional wrestling and just talking about it, the news, the things we liked, the things we hated. Whatever it might be.
Yeah, clearly I take full credit for the development of this podcast. Thank you, Brad.
As you should.
Yeah, no, Brad really nailed it. We're just two dudes who love professional wrestling, and the business is just completely reinvigorated right now. So we felt it appropriate to kind of put our lunchtime conversations onto an official platform. So again, really grateful for the opportunity, Jabari.
I gotta cut in just real quick because the other day I was watching AEW and my favorite wrestler of all time was Crow era Sting.
Yes, Greg.
And I saw one where he was coming in from the crowd and he was gonna go over the guardrail and got one leg up and then was like, nah, fuck this, I can't do this anymore.
That's right.
And I felt that in my old ass bones so much.
Yes. I said the same thing. I saw it and I went, yeah, that's exactly me. That's everything about me. I'm just going to knock the shit out of the way. Yeah, it was amazing.
I'm sorry to derail the pod.
No, you're not derailing anything. You're not derailing anything. Business decisions like that, I can relate to. I completely understand. So, all right, let's go ahead and circle the wagon a little. Let's do it again, but this time, let's talk about some heroes. Some folks, even if they didn't turn out sour. Even maybe they're still good folks. Brad and Tyler, let's stick it with you. Or
all right.
Keep with you.
Listen, I'm glad you said that because my list of heroes, I had to change it 3 or 4 times. It's like, nah, this guy's an asshole now. Nah, this guy did some terrible thing. Whatever it might be.
Brad, that's the point of the show. It's okay. It's totally fine.
So let's start with Brett Favre. Brett Favre was, I'm a Packer fan. I grew up 2 hours from Lambeau. We used to go there in the 80s and early 90s and get $10 tickets. Just walk up to the window, buy some tickets and go to a game. Now you have to know somebody that has had season tickets for 2 lifetimes. And it's just impossible to get it unless somebody gives them to you that they already have. I loved Brett Favre. He was the gunslinger. It was the same reason that I loved probably what everybody else hated. I don't have, I guess Isaiah Thomas would be my particular hero from the Pistons, except it was the entirety of the Bad Boys. I love the Bad Boys. Everybody that I knew that wasn't a Piston fan hated the Bad Boys, which made me love them even harder. So, I mean, it was incredible. And then, of course, Michael Jordan. How can you, given our age, I don't know how you come up and not love Michael Jordan.
Yeah, fuck
even
Michael
if
Jordan.
you hate him.
I was gonna say if you were a hater like me.
Listen,
that man made me cry when I was 13 years old.
Do you think it was a push?
I forget. I sometimes forget Jazz. The Jazz.
I think it was a push? Yes. Do I think that people get away with pushes in the NBA?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a Donovan Mitchell fan, and like every single time you get him on, like, I don't know, Hoops Hype or whatever other like NBA Twitter when he does like one of those nasty step backs, he's pushing off. So like, It's turnabout fair play. I've paid a therapist a lot of money. We're over it.
Plus, at the end of the day, that's Michael Jordan, and that's Brian Russell.
And that's Brian Russell. Exactly.
No disrespect, Brian Russell, but all disrespect. You're not getting that call.
Exactly.
Tyler, what about you?
Yeah, I got a few that stand out. First and foremost, Allen Iverson, the answer. I even had I'll never forget one year the Easter Bunny left me with the basket that was just full of AI swag, particularly an AI wristband. And it took up like my whole wrist because I was maybe 9 or 10 years old. But it was a white wristband and it said the answer on it. And I just cherished that. I didn't even wear it playing. I just cherished it. So AI. For the longest time, really, ever since the shot on Jordan, he was my dude. Other than that, I would say Muhammad Ali. Love the poster in the background. Jabari. Ali for obvious reasons. And then third, I would say Barack Obama. I know Greg mentioned he's in the political space. So I was in high school when Barack was inaugurated and started his presidency. So between those three, and I would even add Derek Jeter. My parents are big Yankees fans, so I kind of covered a lot of ground there. But those are the people that stood out in terms of the wrestling. I would say The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. Not only could that dude talk, but he could kick a lot of ass in the ring. So I had a lot of Rock shirts.
So you guys are all like wholesome and whatnot because my heroes, as we've discussed on previous episodes, and the reason why we're I even created this show, not so wholesome. I came up with O.J. Simpson and Hulk Hogan. We did an entire episode on kind of across the board. Greg, since your main hero is the topic is again as we mentioned in the pre-show, he's up on the Summer Jam screen for tonight. Let the folks see it here for that are watching. Why don't you go through some of your heroes?
Yeah, so the 5, and I'm going to save you on this, Jabari, because I focused strictly on the negative.
Nice. That's what I like.
Number 5 on my list, still my favorite fighter of all time, is Mike Tyson.
Got it. Same here.
I grew up. My dad was a heavyweight champion in high school and college. We grew up watching fights, and like there was nobody more electrifying when I was a little kid than Mike Tyson. Even if his fights lasted 20 seconds, they were still the most exciting 20 seconds of the week, of the month, of the quarter. Number 4, my very first favorite wrestler was the Ultimate Warrior. Like growing up, and he would feel it in his veins, and he was a total psycho, and he had the painted face and, had that like palpable energy about him. And then I found out he was a total shithead. Speaking of shitheads, number 3,
R.I.P. of course.
Yeah. Number 3 is Lawrence Taylor. My very first flag football team when I was 7 years old was the Giants. This was in 92 2. So right in like the final like Giants heyday, like Tecmo Bowl Giants with Lawrence Taylor, and I was like, this is the coolest, baddest man I've ever seen in my life. So I fell in love with the Giants, and I fell in love with Lawrence Taylor. Number 2 on my list, being a kid from Utah, growing up walking distance from the Delta Center, is John Stockton. And then number 1, our main character, guy I would play pickup ball with my brothers. I had 2 brothers growing up. And if it was just one of us was John Stockton, and one of us was always Karl Malone. And Karl Malone was my guy until he wasn't.
I understand. I completely understand. So, quick Karl Malone deal for you. I hated on him so badly.
You should.
So bad. No. I'm talking about during his career. Like, I was such a hater. Such a hater. His little, hand behind the head, dunk, all of that little shit. I was always the biggest hater. So one time I'm counseling kids at the time. I'm in my early 20s, which is a scary thing to think of because I probably shouldn't even be counseling kids now. But I'm counseling probation minors at the time, and we took them to a Clippers and Jazz game. The Clippers at the time used to, just give out the tickets, so we had some pretty good seats. We were, pretty much baseline, like 5 rows back. So the entire time I'm talking to Karl, and he's ignoring because like that's what they do. And then about midway through the fourth quarter, some of the kids that were with me, like, Karl, you suck. And now it's turning into like actual talk. And I'm like, shit, I kind of inspired this, but hey, go ahead. I mean, he's not gonna beat you up. So one of them said something to the effect of like, you're a bitch. And Karl, and I'm not joking with you, he just turns and looks. He looks at me. And I'm like, wait a second, man. Like, time out, man. I said the other shit. I didn't call you a bitch, okay? I didn't say that. But anyhow, yeah. So Karl, yeah, let's go ahead and start right there. Tyler and Brad, were you into Karl at the time? Like during his career, or
watching him at the free throw line was one of the greatest things in the world. Always trying to decipher what the hell he was saying when he was up there. He would stand there and do the mumble thing, take 8 minutes, and then throw the ball up. I haven't gone back to look at how long it took him to get that thing up, but I feel like he probably is the only one that could rival Giannis at time at the free throw line.
He's Giannis's inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely. Be, right? Yeah.
I came in near the tail end of Malone's career. Like we're talking Lakers, that squad that had Gary Payton, Malone. So that, good. Yeah.
So Greg was trying to hurt my feelings in the pre-show, and now you trying to hurt my feelings reminding me of 2004 in the actual show. I can appreciate that.
The second memory I have of Karl Malone standing out is his Rogaine commercials.
I thought it would be
those two.
Yeah, I thought it would be if you're a Pistons fan is when he gave Isaiah, 20 stitches, and then Isaiah came back the next game and dropped almost 50 on Stockton.
I mean, incredible. But in fairness, there were so many games that are memorable, and most of them involve Lambeer.
Yeah,
and the
that's
Celtics
fair.
That I probably that one got buried somewhere.
Shout out to the Robert Parrish chopping down on Lambeer
and not getting ejected. No ejections, and it was
no ejections.
Fight. Incredible time.
Just get up. You're good.
Yes.
You good? Yeah. You guys good?
Rub some dirt on it.
Let's go. Exactly. So let's stick with Karl for just a little bit. We won't focus too much, but it's interesting when Brad, when you brought up the situation at the free throw line. I always kind of figured he was counting the 14 because I thought that was kind of his, the number that he preferred.
Oh God damn!
What's going on? What? Did I say something? Okay. So anyway, for the folks know the deal. Links will be in the description for this. I pulled up a couple articles involving his history. Now, these weren't in Sports Illustrated or ESPN. Actually, one of them is on ESPN. This is a different type of article. Greg, are you comfortable really going to town on your man?
Oh yeah, fuck Karl Malone.
Okay, because the reason why I bring it up is because while Karl Malone was a 20-year-old student and a basketball star at Louisiana Tech University, according to the article, once again, links will be in the bio or it'll be in the description. But according to this article, he impregnated a 13-year-old Gloria Bell. She gave birth to a son, Demetrius Bell, a future NFL lineman. Bell's family, they could have very easily pressed statutory rape charges, but they didn't because, according to Gloria, they described Malone as a neighborhood kid.
He was just a good old boy from the neighborhood.
Hey, sometimes that happens. Like I can remember times where I was dribbling a basketball, and I tripped. I didn't fall into a 13-year-old, but I definitely, that can take place. Were either of you guys familiar with with this part of his history? No.
No, did not know he did a Polanski.
Yeah.
There are others as well. I don't even want to get all the way into them, but I'm going to come to another story of his.
My man's a repeat offender.
He is a repeat offender. Yeah. I guess the positive of the other story that I read was that the young lady was 17 and not 13 this time, but that's a whole other thing. Are either of you guys familiar with the story that involves Vanessa Bryant? Yes. Oh, here we are.
No.
So this is an ESP. This is according to an ESPN article. Now this story has direct quotes from Kobe, rest in peace, of course, from Karl himself, as well as each of their agents. But according to the story, Karl and his son were at a game sitting front row. Vanessa was on the cell phone talking to Karl's wife, Kay, and Vanessa said that her son looked bored. Now, this story, by the way, is being told in this article by Rob Pelinka, who at the time was Kobe Bryant's agent. But when she mentioned that she was bored, Kay, Karl's wife, told Karl to have the son join Vanessa. So Kay gave Vanessa Karl's cell phone number, and she called him. When she called, Karl's response was, "Why don't you come over here, sit next to me, and give me a big hug?" She asked, "Why? For what?" And Karl's reply was, "If you do it, it'll be on the cover of every magazine in the country." Vanessa didn't know what to do about this situation, so she tried to play it off and present it as though like, "Oh, okay, he's just kidding." But Karl continued and said, "Do you like me?" Now I want to remind you guys that he's sitting next to his kid, talking to the wife of a teammate at the time. But so he continues and says, "Do you like me?" To which she responded, "Yes, as a friend, as Kay's husband." From there, Malone asked Vanessa if she could keep a secret, and that he wanted to tell her something. Sorry. And at that point, Vanessa told him, pointed out that that she was a married woman and he's a married man, and and who was far too old for him. In fact, old enough to be her father. To which Malone replied, "Oh, like your daddy?" At that point, she ended the conversation. So, here's the deal. I always heard the other side of this story because the other side of it was actually detailed by Malone's agent at the time. But the other side of it was he was wearing a cowboy hat, and she asked him repeatedly, "Why are you wearing a cowboy hat?" And his response to her was, "Because I'm hunting little Mexicans." So, Karl Malone.
Little Mexican girls, if we're being
I'm
specific.
sorry. He did say girls. My apologies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We'll stop there. So, I know it's terrible. It's terrible. It's an uncomfortable conversation, and there's really not a lot of humor that you can find there, except for just pointing out that on top of him being a scumbag on the court, on top of him having all types of disgusting allegations and things that have been that have actually been proven in his personal life, he's also the world's biggest dirty Mac of all time.
Yeah. We should also probably point out that he was taken to court multiple times. Or no, he filed a lawsuit against Demetrius Bell's mother, despite being someone who was worth almost $100 million to pay the minimum amount of child support. So it's insult upon injury that you're talking about a guy who's, I don't know, one of the 20 best players in the history of the NBA, an inarguable top 5 power forward of all time, a guy with an indelible NBA legacy, and a guy who has made more money than all 4 of us put together ever will in our entire lives, is going to court to pay the bare minimum for his son's child support. It's obviously it's one thing to be a statutory rapist. You could even throw out the P word if you want. I'm not going to be offended from that. And then it's just compounded by just being a fucking deadbeat.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what he also, when the 17-year-old that he fathered twins with, one of which being Cheryl Ford,
Mm-hmm.
you know what he told her? You know what he told her? He said, "Hey, you're 18. I don't know what you want me to do for you."
Yeah.
When they reconnected, that's what his response was. "You're 18. I don't know what you want to do." All right. So
the biggest scumbag, man.
We really, and that's the thing. I'll ask, you know what? I'll ask this as an open question. Why do you think it is that we don't hear about these things? Now, I'm not saying it has to be, it has to, lead every single conversation about them, but it kind of probably should. But why do you think it is that we don't hear anything about these things?
It's a great question. I don't know if there's a good answer other than we're more interested in what was going on elsewhere, so we ignore it on purpose. Even if we are interested, it's easy to bury something if it feels like it's going to violate what we want to be true. I mean, if this is of course a wrestling parallel, but Dark Side of the Ring just aired the episode about the plane ride from hell.
Oh man.
And suddenly we've got all this stuff about Ric Flair that we probably all kind of knew, but to have a bunch of people come out in the same spot and say all the same things, and then suddenly he's Ric Flair, but now he's not Ric Flair anymore. Yeah. That was 20 years ago. Where was that 20 years ago? So I don't know. I think we just kind of go, our heroes are here, so let's keep them here instead of knocking them down, unless they're at a low point or at a time of change. Brett Favre going to the Jets and then leaving for Minnesota was the opportunity to out him as a total dick, pun intended, like just unbelievable stuff, right? Like, so I don't know if there's a well played. I don't know if there's a really good answer to that question. It's really difficult.
Yeah.
I wonder. Greg.
No, please go ahead.
I wonder if he wasn't, the best player on the team, and as Greg pointed out, a top 20 consensus all timer. I wonder if the reporting would have been different, Jabari, if he was just, the 9th or 10th man on the team.
It absolutely would. I mean, and I asked the open-ended question, but and I appreciate the answers, and that was actually, Brad, that was a great answer, and that's a great point. But the truth of the matter is, we know why, because we all look the other, because oftentimes, and I'm not putting this on us, but generally we look the other way when we when it suits us. If somebody's great, at something, they get a pass. If they're one of the best at something, they get a whole lot of passes. And to Greg's point, if they're an all-timer, they get all the passes. And that's ultimately what it is.
And I think I'm not going to say that it's completely unique, but there is a uniqueness to Karl Malone from a local perspective, in that, like, he is the most important player in the history of the Utah Jazz. Mm-hmm. He has a legacy that is obviously untarnishable. In Salt Lake City, he's still beloved in this city. He's still considered a hero. He will never have to pay for a drink. He has a fucking statue in front of the arena still to this day. And this isn't even getting into like his political beliefs, him being on the board of the NRA, and all sorts of, other crazy shit that he's been about. And I think there's also a uniqueness when it comes to Salt Lake and Utah culture, where we do sweep things under the rug, and we don't like confrontation. And it's actually something that I've had to tell multiple bosses, because I don't have a problem with having tough conversations or confronting people. Like, that's just part of my personality. It's how I was raised. And like, there's a sugar coating here that happens. And like, I'm just not one of those people who needs like that, like 3 positives and then a negative kind of a thing. But that is a very pervasive, very ubiquitous part of Utah culture. And we'd much rather focus on the good things, this isn't the podcast, but we could delve into the LDS church. And like, that is a huge part of the culture there. So there is a uniqueness in that, like, we like to build people up and also turn a blind eye, because we would rather just focus on the positive and focus on what makes us feel good.
Man, well stated. I completely can't say any. I can't really add to that, man. But the only thing that I'll say is, what's interesting about it is, I get how that could happen there, but it happens everywhere.
Yeah.
Like in other places, we don't have that same, we don't have those excuses, but I think ultimately, what it really always has been is, we don't necessarily care about the vulnerable as much as we lead on. And if you are rich and famous and great at something, you can usually get away with a lot of things. So on that note, we won't belabor the Karl side of things anymore, but, given that this is, this episode will be released so close to Halloween. Initially, I had asked you guys about 80s and 90s movies. I appreciate you guys being willing to, accept my jab step, my Carmelo Anthony jab step there. I'm asking you guys for your top 3 horror movies before we get out of here.
So I don't,
Brad,
I
why
don't
don't you lead
know.
us off? Yeah.
All right. I struggled with this because I also love horror comedy, and I don't know if it fits the genre. So I left
It's your list. It's your
Army
list.
of Darkness and Slither
Hell
are
yes.
both supposed to be on this
Love it.
list. But I, for the sake of keeping it more horror focused, the original Evil Dead, I love that movie so much. Sam Raimi, that movie is so funny if you watch it knowing the history of how it was shot. Creepy. It's still great. Super low budget. So much though, so that you can watch Bruce Campbell's haircut change throughout the movie because they kept running out of money and they had to shut down for 5 months or so, go back, reshoot, and it took place on location, but mostly in somebody's garage and in somebody's basement. That movie started a franchise and launched careers for people. It's incredible. It's also a great movie that ends with just it's terrible. It's terrible. Like there's no happy ending. And then there's really happy piano music just to make people just at the end of the
It's such a good juxtaposition.
It's so incredible because you get done like this and then you just sit there with it. Like, what am I listening to now?
Yeah, why?
And I have this image of the camera rushing at a face at the very end. Incredible stuff.
It's like the ending of Clockwork Orange.
Yes. Poltergeist. I love Poltergeist. The steak or whatever it was that slithers across the counter freaked me out. The screaming of "Go into the light, Carol Ann," or "They're here," or the tennis ball with the dog, whatever it might have been. There were so many great moments in that movie. Poltergeist 2 also freaked me out. I hated the "we'll overcome this as a family" thing. I get it, but it was way too thick. But that old dude singing. Nightmare Fuel. So I'm lumping those two together, but oh man, awful. And then The Sixth Sense.
Oh, very nice. Very. You know what? You actually put a lot of thought into your list. I'm like, I kind of threw mine together, but honestly, hearing yours, there's several of those I got to go back and watch. And to your point about Poltergeist 2, that old man when he says, "Let me in," and he, still, I'm in my 40s, and that still gets me. That still absolutely gets me. All right, Tyler, what about some of yours?
Yeah. Brad's a hard act to follow as always, but my top 3 would be in order. Number 3, The Shining. So I took a Stanley Kubrick class in college at the University of Arizona.
Oh, hell yeah.
And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was a great class.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was awesome. We watched the Clockwork Orange and all of his classics, but The Shining for obvious reasons. Number 2, this may surprise you guys. I got to go with Freddy versus Jason.
Oh,
not based on quality, but when I tell you guys this, in 2003, I was 10 years old, and this was like Ali versus Frazier.
Yeah.
For me. I look back on it now. The movie is awful. I checked before our time together, and it has a 41% on Rotten Tomatoes. So not the cream of the crop, but just in terms of my excitement level for this film,
You
has
see
to
a
be
guy get folded into a bed.
right. Come on now. Gonna stand the test of time. And then finally, this was easy for me. Number 1, Get Out. This movie,
I like it.
So good.
This movie is easily my favorite movie in the history of cinema. This is not hyperbole. I'll never forget. I'll end with this. I was in Tucson, the city where the U of A is located in Arizona. And a few of my friends and I kind of got like VIP tickets to see a screening of Get Out about a week before it was released to the general public. And the theater was packed. It was full. And when I tell you, this is the first movie I've been to where it was an experience. It wasn't just, okay, we sit and watch, we eat, and then we leave. Everyone was reacting to every moment in Get Out. It was such a, I'll never forget it. I was so hyped for the movie. I had no idea what to expect. And I think Jordan Peele is an absolute creative genius. So Get Out today will be my number one. And I think will always be at the top spot.
I'm gonna tell you the truth. I went in to Get Out not knowing what to expect. Of course, I'm one of those, like, if I'm really anticipating the movie, I won't watch the previews. I specifically won't. I'll try to avoid spoilers. I'm that guy, right? When I say that I felt like standing up and clapping at the end of Get Out, I actually mean it. When Lil Rel shows up at the end, and whatever,
yes.
If you guys, spoilers, whatever. If you haven't seen Get Out by now, that you're an asshole. So when Lil Rel shows up at the end to save the day, I mean, like, I was in the theater like, hell yeah, like, absolutely incredible, man. And I agree with you on Peele, but what did you guys think? This isn't a movie podcast, but here we are. What did you guys think about the follow-up with Us? Because I wanted to love it, and yes, there were things about it that were also very good, but it kind of fell short for me.
Yeah. I'll start that, Jabari. I agree. I love Us, but like you said, it was very different. And I think Get Out was just such a grand slam that for me, I guess in baseball terms, Us was still a home run. I loved it, but it was not the grand slam that Get Out was. It did fall short for me. I agree.
But how many sequels are better than the original? Right. Like very, very, very few.
I mean, but was it intended to be a continuation of that story, or? I mean, is it part of the same universe? Is my question. It's more of his sophomore. It's more of his sophomore follow up, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's true. It's tough to. It's probably unfair to even compare the two, specifically because Get Out is a classic, an all time. For me at least, it's an all time classic film.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that it is fair. Greg, we're coming to you, man. Let me surprise me.
Tyler took my first one with The Shining, so I'm gonna actually switch it. And the whole premise of this these aren't even the movies that I would say are necessarily my favorite horror movies of all time. These are the three movies that scared the piss out of me as a kid. So The Shining, we're going to pivot from that, although that really did scare me. I'm going to be the snob and say that the book is actually even better than the movie.
It is.
It's so good. As great as Kubrick is, and as jealous as I am that you got to take that class, like, there's a lot of stuff that was missing in that movie that I wish, like, especially like the whole history of abuse with Jack Torrance and all of that. But neither here nor there. Number one on my list now is Alien. First time I watched Alien,
yes,
wanted to poop my pants.
Yes.
It's so scary. It's so claustrophobic. And you go back and you watch it now, and the entire movie, it just makes you feel like you can't breathe. And I love that. I think it's a masterclass.
Yeah.
Number two on my list is the movie that scared me more than any other movie. I watched it for the first time in middle school. It's The Exorcist. And just those little blips you see in the movie, and like all of like the foreshadowing, and then of course like the finale, like it just like etched just a hole in my brain. And like it took me years to be able to go back and actually watch that again, because it scared me so bad, like absolute nightmare fuel.
It was a crucifix scene, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, just all of the above. Like it's just.
Oh, the spider walk. Ugh.
Yeah, it's just like it's just really especially when you're like a 12-year-old kid trying to watch that, and like you're seeing head spin and spider walks and like projectile vomit, and like, I mean, I've got a toddler now, so projectile vomit isn't really much of a thing anymore. But when you're 12,
that's the thing.
Terrible. And then the other one, that's it's like frontal lobe, and then I've got my back lobe that has the hole etched in it, and it's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Love it.
Okay. Leatherface still scares me, man. Even like the really shitty Jessica Biel version, like Leatherface, you get like a dude who wears other people's faces and wields chainsaws. Like, yeah, I'll actually tell you a funny story. Years ago, I went on a date to a haunted house, and I ended up getting kicked out of the haunted house because there was a Leatherface like character that jumped out and like was wielding a chainsaw, and I just reactively punched him.
Oh shit!
I didn't like. I didn't
that'll
even
get you
think.
kicked
No,
out.
and that's the thing. I didn't think twice, and like I hit him, and it was like one of those things. It was like, oh shit! I didn't mean to do this. But it was like something like it was like old army reflex kind of thing.
Do you guys remember that viral clip from years back?
Yeah,
it was, where
the
it was
trash
kids.
Yes.
Yeah. The guy pops up.
Yep. Just right back in the can.
Very
That was
similar
Greg.
situation. Yeah, like
That was
guy jumps out at me and he's leather faced with his apron and his gross mask and his like chainsaw like over his head, and like the only thing I could think at the time was like I gotta just throw a right cross.
I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad. You know what? Honestly, lessons were learned that day.
Exactly.
Lessons were learned.
I apologize. I was escorted out of the haunted house. The date was over. I don't think I ever called or she ever called me back. I certainly didn't call her back out of sheer embarrassment. But
Yeah.
you know,
That might be.
we live and learn.
Exactly. Lessons learned. All right. So some of mine were taken. So I'll try to go on the spot. I'm a bit of a traditionalist when it comes to these. So I'm going to stick with the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And this is why, because in 1984, your boy was 5 years old. I should not have been watching that, but I damn sure was. And so here's the deal. The famous scene of him in the alley where he stretches his arms across, that used to, when I say that used to scare the living shit out of me, that used to literally, as Greg alluded, it made me want to poop. It made me want to poop. I go back and I watch that now and I'm like, really, you stupid kid? Like why were you still? Like you couldn't see that was ridiculous to begin with. But anyhow, that's one. The original Friday the 13th is fantastic, but I actually like Friday the 13th too. I'm a big like 80s horror fan, but I actually like Friday the 13th too a little bit better. Obviously, it's his debut. It's his debut. It's not the mom. Again, if you haven't seen these movies, it's from 1982 or whatever. I'm not spoiling anything, or I shouldn't be spoiling anything. And in the third,
yeah,
exactly. And in the third one, let me see. I'll have to get a little bit creative. All right. So this was the first time that I saw zombies actually acting like what I imagine zombies would act like. Dawn of the Dead. Before that, you get zombies like
incredible,
so good.
Dawn of the Dead. These zombies weren't playing games. Plus, you got Ving Rhames. You got pretty fun cast. You got a pretty fun cast beyond that. You got a zombie baby. Coming to attack you and all of that good stuff. It's in the mall. Exactly. That's America. That's what that is. That's ultimately that's how this all is.
Just a bunch of zombies in a mall.
Yeah.
That's how this all is.
Yeah.
There we are. On that note, guys, I really appreciate you taking the time to join today. For the listeners and now viewers out there, obviously you can see that we've had a format change. Shout out to Tanisha Singleton. She said that when she has time, she'll still be in the mix at times, but this is pretty much how it's going to go moving forward. So before we get out of here, let's just circle around one more again. Brad, where can the folks find you, and where should they look for your wonderful podcast?
I think we're in most places you can find podcasts now. It's called Gimmick Infringement. It is, if you're looking for the logo, it is Miami Vice inspired. Tyler, am I missing anything, Tyler?
No.
Great fill
Fair
in.
enough.
At GI Pod 19, the link is in there. That's the podcast Twitter page. I believe I have the link up to you at Wind Duster. Not Winchester, obviously that was taken. This is a play on the misspellings of my names by students over the years. So Wind Duster. I think that's it.
Cool. And as you can see, the viewers can see Tyler. We're gonna try to convince Tyler to get on Twitter, but for now, he's got the @G9, GI19 or Pod 19.
Yes, that's right.
So sooner or later, we'll get him on there. It'll be a peer pressure.
Stay away and save yourself the brain poison.
Oh, it's very much that. Very much that. But
Noted.
You know what? Crabs in a barrel. Come on, get in here with us. Greg, where can the folks find all of your incredible stuff?
Yeah, so you can find me at Dad Shamdad on Twitter. 2 podcasts again, of Brigham Young Money and Unsalvageable. You can follow us at BY Money Pod. Or if you want to kick us a few bucks and sign up for the Patreon, patreon.com/Brigham Young Money. And Unsalvageable, you can follow us at Unsalvageable on Twitter. You can also follow at NBA Sarah if you're into NBA and the Utah Jazz.
Folks, follow all of these guys. Follow their partners. I was honestly glad that you guys gave those out, or Greg, that you gave those out. Follow their shows. And like I said at the beginning, this is a test. All right, I need you guys to shoot them reviews and comments. Rate them. Give them 5. You give them less than 5, you're a punk. That's straight up. That's how we're ending this.
Let's go.
So, for Never Meet Your Heroes, for the wonderful 19 Media Group. Thank you guys for joining.